Alrighty, so welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. This is more on my Yamaha R6 fairing restoration, or the new fairings going on, I should say. The old ones are bad, the new ones have arrived. I just did a video on what to expect when you open up the box. They are ABS unfinished plastic fairings. On the whole, I'm really happy with them. All the tabs survived, all the holes look good, there's nothing, you know, they're all properly penetrated, the clips all look good. Now I have experienced some rough spots on the cutouts. This is the headlamp cowl, and what I'm finding is, obviously depending on the size of the piece of plastic, depends on how much time you need to spend on it to prep it for paint. Just to let you know, I'm using the Rust-Oleum primer and paint in one, high gloss. So I'm finding some rough spots on the edges, a few high spots, a few tiny bits of plastic that weren't removed in the mold. For example, these edges right here need to be sanded down to be smooth, otherwise it's going to be a visible line. So I'm spending about 10 or 15 minutes on each piece of plastic just to take off the rough edges with a block sander, a sponge sander, and then finishing off with some 800 grit or 1200 grit just to make sure it's 100% smooth, wiping it down with a little bit of solvent just to clean the edges, putting it in the sun for a minute, letting it all dry off, and then painting it. The biggest challenges I have basically is I don't have a paint shop and I don't have a paint booth, and it's not 100% dust free. I've tried to create a little area with some plastic sheeting up so I'm not getting hair and dust in the air. A little tiny bit, but nothing that can't be polished out when it's done. So here's what to expect. It's not, you know, absolutely paint ready. These are unfinished and you've got to put some time in if you want it to look great. The more time you put into prep work before you spray paint, the better the job. But if you don't have a paint booth to spray in, even if you put hours into prepping this, you go outside and you get some dust in the air, you're going to get hair and dust all over your fresh paint. So this kind of a project, because I'm not being 100% anal about trying to get a showroom finish, this bike is for canyons and track. It's going to get scratched, and it's going to not be nice to just pull off a piece of fairing. If it gets scratched, replace it or sand it and give it a fresh coat of paint. It's going to look great again. So I'm trying to keep it simple, trying to keep it easy. So like I said, 2 coats of this. I'm waiting 15 minutes between each coat, a light coat covering everything, letting it dry for 15 minutes, and then a second coat, and then the same thing, and then hanging it up in the sun to bake. So I can show you the progress I've made so far and what it looks like. So here's one of the side panels that's been painted, second coat. It's had about 15 minutes drying in the hot sun here in Southern California, which I'm very lucky to have. But as you can see, the paint went on really nicely, no bubbling, no crazing, no orange peel, no horrible flecks or anything. These visible side panels I put about 10-15 minutes into light sanding just to get it really smooth before the paint went on. And if we head over here, you can see my panels hanging in the sun here off a rope. They're getting plenty of sunshine. So that's the rear tail piece. We've got another side piece panel here. So far I'm really happy with the actual quality of the paint. I've had trouble in the past. Don't wait more than an hour for that second coat. Get it on fast. As soon as it's touch dry in 15 minutes, put that second coat on and then you're done. Otherwise you're gonna have to wait a week or two or bake it, because these enamel paints, if they're not dry 100% and you put a second coat over, you're gonna just have a nightmare time. It's gonna crackle and bubble and just not be good. So yeah, I've got 5 pieces done, and The rest is going to be hanging up hopefully by lunchtime, drying in the sun. Okay, so here's one of the big bits of fairings. This is the main side piece fairing. Wraps around, goes to the underbody. I wanted to show it to you. It's straight out of the bag. Show you some of the imperfections. They're really minor. Slightly sharp edge there that's a little proud, but it's on the underside, so it's hardly going to be seen. The same with these edges. There are a few tiny little spots that you could use, you know, a Stanley knife, sharp blade, razor blade, and just take those edges off, or just use your sanding block and clean that up. So it feels rough to the touch. It's not smooth and rounded, which it would be nice to be, especially putting on and putting off, taking on and off the bike. Visibility wise, it's not really going to be visible on the bike because of where it's located, but nice to have it smoothed off and cleaned. So moving around to this side, again, you can see right here a little sharp edge on the edge of the mold there that could be rounded off and smoothed off. But on the whole, the holes themselves for the fitting fairing kit, they're all very smooth. The actual surface of the plastic itself is excellent. There's no scratches or deep grooves. It just needs a very light sanding to help key the paint. Turn this around. Again, this edge, it's the rounded edge that is where your knees are gonna go, and there's a slight raise right here. I don't know if the light is gonna catch it, but again, I'm gonna round that off and smooth it out with a piece of sandpaper. Here, tiny bit of roughness, a little sharp point here that can be smoothed off. Again, these bottom edges, and this is the underside of the bike. You're never going to see this, but this is where it connects under the bike to the opposite side of the fairing. Again, a few little rough spots. But on the whole, no damage whatsoever to any of these big bits of fairing. In fact, all the fairing I've come through so far has been excellent. It's good enough to just put on the bike. If you've got a track-only bike and you want fairing and you want a white bike, this is clean enough and tight enough and good enough to go straight on the bike, in my opinion. Don't even worry about paint. You could just put stickers on this and go for it. Get some plastic polish if you want to take out some of the scratches. But you know, like I said, all I'm doing is just doing a really light sponge sand with this, which is, I think it's probably 80, might be 100 grit, and then I'm going to a very fine 1200 grit or 1500 grit sandpaper just to finish it off. So, you know, I'm really happy with these fairings so far. The paint's going on nicely. Really happy with the Rust-Oleum. Some people hate it, some people love it, but this stuff is, I'm on my second can, so I'll let you know how many cans it takes to do the entire fairing set. Alright, back to painting. Okay, so we're back. The painting is done. Here's my washing line of painted fairing parts. All done, all baking in the hot California sun, and I am pleased with all of those. So I ended up using 3 cans of the Rust-Oleum and about a quarter of a can, not even, of Rust-Oleum black. The majority of the parts that come, which are molded plastic black, look like this, and they have kind of a pebble finish, very light, but it looks really nice. There's no imperfections in it, and it does not need paint as far as I'm concerned. A nice wipe down with some back to black or some Armor All, and that's going to be just perfect. If I paint it white and it gets scratched, any scratches are going to show the black through. Black is a notoriously hard color to paint, so I'm not going to even attempt to spray paint black. White is a lot more forgiving. You can see over here the underpan on the back tail end. Couple of little, these have just been painted, so they're really glossy right now. They're drying in the sun, these little side bits. These are the only pieces that had any imperfections in them, and I needed to use a tiny bit of pinhole body filler and sand it down. But they were black, so they've been painted black, and hopefully when they dry in, they'll look just fine. The side pieces where the knee goes look like that, and they've got that molded finish built into it. So again, I do not want to paint these. I'm going to leave them as is. In the future, if I feel like they should be painted black, I can do that, but the finish is so perfect that there's really no need, I don't think, to put a layer of paint on top of that. It's just going to get scratched up. So that's it. Amount of time it took was about 5 hours. That's sanding each piece, 5 to 15 minutes, prepping it for paint, cleaning it up with a clean rag, and then 2 coats of the white paint, and then I'd hang it up and then do the next piece. So about 5 hours of work to paint everything. So I guess you got to figure out what your time is worth. If your time is worth $5 an hour, then at 5 hours to do that, you just spent $25 of labor. To be honest, if I didn't have a YouTube channel and I wasn't making videos about motorcycle content, I would probably have bought pre-painted panels, because 5 hours of work is a lot. At $50 an hour, that's $250. So I don't know what your hourly rates are, but just do the math. You can buy a set of these fully painted with logos and graphics on them for around between $500 and $600 with shipping and tax and all that. So that's actually a pretty good deal, considering the amount of work that has to go into getting these things ready for paint. So if you are thinking about buying one of those Zxmt body kits, or whatever the heck they're called, this is what to expect. Going to let these dry thoroughly, and then the business of putting them on the bike will begin. Taking off what's left of the old bits, reusing as much of the fairing attachment points, and snapping them all into place, and hopefully they'll fit. As always, thank you for watching. Ride safely, come home alive.
Woo!